Jared.
Okay. I knew I seen you, but I couldn't remember your name. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm the inspector. On the
Okay,
site.
okay.
Chief supervisor, I'm
Sure.
the inspector. Don't know where Grant is. He was gonna touch base more on it, but as far as progression goes, everything's in line to progress as the plan. So there is no delays or anything. We just broke ground at McCarty Street and got it ripped up so we can go ahead and do the tie-in there and keep on with the trunk line. So other than that, we don't have much more of an update unless you guys have anything.
Is that the last, there's one more after that, or is McCarty the last one?
McCarty
The water
will be
line,
last
McCarty
time.
Street,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
where the water line
Yeah,
is.
okay.
We left that one for last.
This is Grant with Milestone too. Sorry, Jared, just got my connection to work.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Hi, Grant.
I can give a quick update. So we are working on subgrade as well as we do have about another 150 feet of storm pipe to lay, and a few inlets to set. Like Jared said, we do have the last tie-in at McCarty Street. We do have that scheduled to start on Monday, the 8th. Cooley plans to be on site on the 9th, where they're going to help us install install one of the line stops there. So we should have all that water line process wrapped up the week of the 8th. And then as we continue into the month, we'll finish up with the subgrade as well as fine grading, and then we'll go down to putting the first layer of asphalt down, the OG layer, as well as a layer of base. And then towards the end of the month, we'll be installing our slip curb.
What was that last part?
The slip curb.
Oh.
So where we do the curb and gutter, that's the same. We'll bring a slip machine, slip the curb out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Grant.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Was that it? Was there an email thread about fixing the curb? Is that all resolved already?
No, I don't know. Steve probably would be the one to handle that since he's not here. Yeah.
That's based on improvements or any changes or whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They aren't here. so.
that was since the last meeting that INDOT came
Yes,
to us. So
yes.
that would be
Yeah.
covered here.
Were
Okay.
there any questions on that email?
I-
What was it, State Road 67 project that needed to be addressed at this meeting?
That's what
That-
we were just talking
okay.
about.
That was
Okay.
one of them. Confirm
There
that
was one question
you're back on it.
regarding the curb down at the Broadway Diner. That, from my understanding with talking to Steve, is he's looking at that. It will be fixed. It just hasn't been determined on the solution to that corner yet and the way it's going to be repaired. A repair will be made on that corner. To the extent of the repair, I do not know. It will be done when we do our punch list, though.
Okay.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Good. Old business, we have council to consider a bid to replace the old sign in front of Town Hall. Joe?
Okay, this is something, there's been some discussion recently about this. I know I did go back in the minutes and it was actually November of 22 is when I first brought this up. There was a proposal to replace or modify the existing sign out front for $7,300. And it was, I was asked by the council to look at other options, make sure the options meet the town code, which our current sign does not. So that was kind of next. So I was asked to look at other options and get additional pricing. I did, and it looks like the sign that was agreed upon toward the end. Can you pull that up, Adam? This sign has gone through multiple modifications, and each time I would go back to sign companies and ask for quotes. And as it got down to the final draft on this, I only received 2 quotes back. But the good thing is Riley Signs, which is the lower quoter on this, they started out low in the beginning and they hung with us to keep going. So There's the current sign that we have and what's proposed. The little black at the bottom shows what it'll look like at night with the lighting on it. Riley, signs, the lowest quote I got on that was $15,845. And Sign Works was the other bid that I got, and it was $26,885.
We're both quotes for the exact same thing.
They were, yeah, I sent them all the same information to bid off of, and there were several other sign companies that I sent that to, and like I say, only the two responded.
Yeah, I like the looks of the sign. I think it looks really nice.
I agree.
But one of the things that, as we were discussing this and passing it around, council had asked me to get Mike McGever's input, which is our local sign guy that put the mural on the side of the 305 wine garage up there, or the new building. And he did have a couple of modifications, and I think he did improve upon it. And but he's at the point where he's not doing signs these days. But he's still an artist and still had some good modifications that he prepared.
Did either of these vendors have a sense of like a budget target? Did they ask you for a budget or anything?
No, I actually set our budget with the bookkeeper, and it was brought to the council for approval earlier on in the year. And the budget that I asked for was 15,000, because before the modifications to this, we were closer to 14,000, and I thought 15 would get us there. So after the modifications, it actually come in a little over.
Oh,
So-
you're saying that the budget was 14,000 and then with the modifications, you changed it to 15,000?
No, one of the bids before modifications come in a little over 14. So I felt comfortable with asking the bookkeeper to put in $15,000 for a budget for the sign. I figured that would get us the sign. And then after sending it back for some additional modifications, and the price did go up $885 more than what the budget was.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
It meets all codes. It meets all town sign codes and all that.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Are we gonna take any public comment on this?
That's-
Yeah, sure we can.
We can.
Public comment, anybody?
That's what I just mentioned, the fact that that black box down below there is an example of what that sign will look like at night, lit up.
Yeah, so the letters will all be backlit. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Well, I'm ready. I'll make a motion to approve the Riley signs proposal for the new town hall sign.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No,
Motion carries.
just for the record, the two quotes were far enough apart that I'm kind of concerned, even though they were quoted out for the same thing. So that's my take on that personally, and this quote is a little bit over what the budget was, which I gather probably doesn't matter, but that's my reasoning.
Okay, moving on. Joe? Town?
The only thing I've really got this evening, I was asked by Dave Thompson, our water and sewer plant superintendent, to present these quotes that he got. This is the fiberglass grating out at the sewage treatment plant. This is over the catwalk. And I think, Adam, you pulling those drawings up for pictures. There's fiberglass grating that goes over top all the tanks that you walk on. They're old, they're brittle. IDAM told him he needs to get them replaced. He had an engineer give him a second opinion. Engineer confirmed that they're long overdue and they do need replaced. So he did go out to bid on those, and I brought in 3 quotes from him. One was 99,492. One was 29,528.45. And then his low bid was $27,250. Now I realize I'm bringing this to you tonight without much time to review, so, you're welcome to make a call on this evening, or if you want to wait till the next meeting, however you want to handle that, but it is a maintenance item, and I will tell you that he's got an inspection tomorrow, and it would be kind of nice to be able to tell him he's got the approvals to move forward with.
It's tomorrow.
And all of these cover the same
Yep.
thing.
Big price difference.
What's-
Now, I will tell you that the high price that he got on here, the one company asked if he could bid galvanized versus the fiberglass,
say, it looks like it's not.
because he felt
yeah.
like he could give it a better price, and it didn't end up being less, ended up
Well,
being.
what's the difference? I mean, it doesn't look like fiberglass. to me,
it didn't
but
look like it to me either.
Is
It
it-
looks
is
like-
it-
When you're there and look at it, it's kind of Larry walking across it if you don't know. I mean, it is fiberglass, and it's made out of thin, it's just thicker stuff, and
How long does
It's-
that last versus?
I don't know how long it actually is supposed to last, but they say it does have a life expectancy, and it's met that years ago.
I'm sure, yeah. I'm sure it flexes a
How
lot.
How long has it been there?
Nervous, probably since the plant was redone. Well, when it was redone in 2012, they said it probably should have been replaced back then, and it wasn't. So it was probably 20 years before that.
So like 30 something years old probably,
That would be my estimate.
and it's fiberglass now.
Mhm.
So we should expect the new fiberglass to last
Yeah.
approximately 30 years.
I would think so.
How long do you think that the steel or the aluminum would last?
What is it?
In
aluminum or is it
comparison.
Steel that or galvanized?
Yeah.
How long?
Galvanized stuff is very corrosive, or I mean, any,
That's what I would think.
there's corrosive, and they fight the rust and everything a lot. That's the reason why they use fiberglass. That's why they recommend that, because it lasts and it doesn't deteriorate.
Yeah, boats are fiberglass, aren't they?
Sure.
You know,
Lots of
so-
showers and, yeah,
There's aluminum
Yeah.
in it.
cars.
I'm with Ryan. I'm kind of curious about what's really the relative advantage of galvanized. I'm not seeing any.
I wouldn't think that it would last 3 times as long.
No.
I wouldn't think that it'd last 100 years, to be 3 times as expensive.
Well, to be
Yeah,
fair,
that's,
I understand that steel prices are up pretty high right now.
Right.
Sorry, it's aluminum.
I thought it said aluminum.
It is aluminum.
Yeah.
That's why,
Stainless supply-
that's why it
aluminum
costs so much.
grading non-serrated.
I'll
He
tell you,
said he
that's
was
why
gonna-
it costs
he said he
that.
was gonna pull-
Looks like it says
It's
aluminum.
aluminum. That-
But
well,
I
that-
Either way, they
don't,
were
that's why
all-
it's so much.
They were all asked to bid the fiberglass, the green fiberglass.
Well, if it's aluminum, it should have a lifetime warranty on it.
2 companies, Apex and MIG. What do you think the difference in those 2 companies is? Do you know?
I don't, there's not a big difference in numbers.
Right.
It'd be the labor. 27,000 versus 29. Well,
So I'm
$2,200
looking
difference.
like this,
Joe, do you know
Green or
anything about the 2 companies with the lower bids?
I know nothing about any of those. I'm-
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. It looks like one's from Winchester and one's from Indianapolis.
They're in the industry, that's all I know. I don't know anything about any of them.
Because, like one here is quoting, labor versus materials. The other one just has one flat quote.
Yeah, sometimes they don't want to break it up.
I like this one.
then
I like the quote, like the way it's
laid out.
laid out better.
Again, I'm bringing this to you on his behalf, and if you want to ask questions, fine, or if you want to.
I mean, as far as
Put it to bid.
budget for something like this, where does it fall? And
Yeah, we're good as far as the budget goes, as far as sewer, it's maintenance issues that we don't
Yeah. plenty there,
typically want
plenty
to
there
let
for
go.
right, what's everybody think about it? I like the Apex one better.
Too.
And it's more local. A little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And the quote's broken down more.
Right. I'd be okay with voting on it. Are you guys okay with that? I'll make a motion to approve the Apex AG Solutions quote for the grates on the water plant.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
And sewer treatment. Yeah. Thank you. I'll pass that along. And other than that, I don't have anything unless you have anything for me.
Adam,
I
do you
think the
have-
sign looks good, thanks.
yeah,
Do you want to let people know about the water flushing or anything
Water flushing.
that you've been doing recently?
We did flush hydrants in the spring. We've only been flushing recently if there's complaints. So if anybody is experiencing any discolored water, call the office, let us know. That way we know we can target certain areas where there may be some discolored water. I will tell you with, the volume picking up with irrigation, causes some of it. The rest is caused from iron and manganese. It's in the wells. It's in the ground. That's just what it is. It starts to settle out in the mains, and anytime there's a big movement of water, whether it be shutting the water down to do a connection, a water main break, flushing hydrants, anything like that, a large demand for irrigation or any other use, helps stir that stuff up and will cause the water to turn murky. But if anybody has any concerns in any certain areas, we can target those areas and do some target flushing. Happy to do so. And our plans are we typically flush once a year, but our goal is to try to flush again in the fall and then again in the spring, and then get back on our annual flushing routine. And hopefully we'll be having an open house at the water treatment plant before too much longer, and be able to take people through the plant and show them how it operates and how our water, where it comes from, how it's treated, and what to expect when it gets to your house.
hopefully we'll get a little more understanding of what's going on with the water.
Mm.
And that it happens all over the country. It's not just here, so there's a lot to be learned. A lot of people don't know a lot of things. I didn't know a lot of things, so it'll be good information. Hopefully people will come and that'll be the problem, is getting them there. It is, yeah.
Well, Joe, a question about that. Back in the winter, when everybody's water was discolored, the idea was, oh, it'll get better in the spring when we do the spring flushing. And now there's some discoloration coming back. So do you think that it's from the water plant or from the road work? With it getting tied?
It could be a little bit of all of
Getting
it.
tied in.
Little bits of all of it. The winter, the reason why it was bad is because we went through last summer with a high demand and an old plant that was getting ready to fall apart. And before we got the new plant online, we didn't have the volume to flush the mains. So the mains didn't get flushed. That's why we were experiencing some dark water in the winter time.
That was a year and a half.
Once
when
it got warm enough to where we could start flushing, we did so. That took care of a lot of the majority of the issues. But again, now this stuff's starting to settle out and it's calm, shutting the mains down to make tie-ins. We had a big water main break, had a contractor hit one up at North Main in Carolina, 6-inch main, and lost a lot of water. So that stirred stuff up again. So anytime that there's a disturbance or a reason to move water quickly in the main, it lifts up those particles and starts to, discharge it.
What contractor, I saw that over the weekend over there in Carolina. What, was that the apartments doing that? Is that where they hook in at, is on that?
They were actually going by a water main where there was
Okay.
an elbow. And when they dug past it, they removed the kicker and the pipe blew apart. So, yeah, they wasn't even digging on it or connecting it or anything. They were just digging too close to it and it blew apart.
I was just trying to determine, if it has to do with the construction that's gonna be done at some point here in November, whenever, versus the other things you're describing just sound like things that always happen and will just keep happening.
Yeah,
And
this-
does the water just turn brown all the time and then we just keep calling you all the time?
Yeah, this is not a unique thing to Fort Hill. It happens all over the country. I mean, if you look on YouTube, there's videos all over the place about iron and manganese in water and why is my water brown from a municipal water supply. And when I was at the water conference here a couple months ago, they had a big conference room full of people. They were discussing about, why people's waters are brown. it comes out clear at the water treatment plant, but why is it brown at the faucet? Well, then that was pretty much it. The iron, manganese that it's in the water and it starts to settle out in the mains and it attaches to some of the mains. And when you start flushing, it starts breaking it loose and moving it.
Like in an increased way these past few years or something like,
I will say, I think it's pretty normal, but here in Fortville, it's a new issue.
I would guess the new water treatment plant is probably pushing water. I mean, with all new technology being, we had real old technology, I would think that it pushes it harder and we should expect, maybe.
make the water dirtier.
No,
You know.
moving the water faster.
Yeah.
Is gonna cost some of that.
Because the pipes are old.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and just like for instance, if you take a well, if you got a well that's rusty, if it starts to settle out and it's clear and you're barely pulling water out of it, it'll probably stay clear. You put a big draw on it, start sucking it out real fast, you're gonna pull a lot of iron and dirt and stuff out of the banks and start pulling that dirt up out of there.
Makes sense.
I don't know. I've never experienced dirty water anywhere in other cities for many, many years, but thank you for the information.
No, please look it up. I mean,
Yeah.
look online. and
Greenfield,
There's a lot.
It's-
Yeah.
There's days that our dishwater at the ice cream store over there is yellow. And they don't have any new water
Oh, it's-
facilities or. it's just-
I follow a lot of communities on Facebook and there's a lot of communities are doing the same thing, or people are showing pictures of dirty water in their glasses and I'm getting it's a normal thing with well water, the iron and manganese. And if you don't do a lot of flushing and I'm not gonna say that the plant is running perfectly because there's still some bugs that they're trying to work out there as well.
Right, that was my other kind of.
And if
thought.
they get some of those
Out
bugs
there.
worked out, it might help even more.
Mhm.
I'm feeling pretty confident that we're gonna get, good and clean and once we, get back on our flushing routine and plants dialed in, it should be good. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Adam, you got anything for us?
Yes, a couple of things. First, for our single-family residential permits, we issued 9 new building permits from the beginning of 2024 until the end of May. And then in June, we did 35. So there was a significant jump, which is a good thing. But just so you're aware of it, we had mentioned that we've been seeing a lot of new build activity. A lot of that is coming from the Northwest Fortville subdivision where Lennar Homes, one of the new builders, is doing a lot of spec homes. And now that a couple of new sections have opened up, they're just submitting for a lot of spec homes. So I'm seeing a lot of activity there.
Is that on Ohio Street? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, on
Yep,
West
so there'll
Ohio
be
Street.
some houses that'll be going up along Ohio Street. And then within the subdivision too, of course. The other thing that I wanted to mention is we were planning on putting it as a more formal item for your discussion, but Joe, myself and Tanya talked a little bit about it and wanted to at least bring the council and the public up to speed on this topic. And that is Fishers is looking to annex unincorporated areas in Hamilton County, just adjacent to our town limits. And they certainly have every right to do that and to go through the state mandated process to do that. But if you'll recall, in our revised comprehensive plan, which is under, it's on the home stretch right now for public consumption and council consumption. We had shown the boundary to include a couple of areas in Hamilton County, namely Flat Fork at Vermilion and then the Vermilion neighborhood as well. And the reason for that was first, those areas have seemed to be have appeared to be like a Fisher's neighborhood. A lot of those folks, or I'm sorry, Fortville neighborhood, a lot of those folks seem to think that they live in Fortville anyway. We get calls all the time, looking to build permits, looking to serve on our boards and commissions, and we tell them that, unfortunately, you're in unincorporated Hamilton County. Secondly, it would potentially boost our assessed value that feeds into the community. And also, as you all know, those neighborhoods, we serve Fortville water to already, and they do have a Fortville zip code. So what we're asking the council is to see if it would make sense to engage with the city of Fishers to see what their thoughts are on the topic at all. I don't think they're aware of this discussion. And just to see first, take that first step, see what it is that they're looking to accomplish, and explain to them what we were looking to accomplish as well. And then lastly, it could be a scenario by which, and again, we'd have to see what Fisher says. It could be a scenario by which that you just simply let the people in those areas decide, do they want to be unincorporated Hamilton County? They want to go into the town of Fortville, or they want to go to city of Fishers? That could be a way of handling it. But tonight, if you're comfortable with it, I think all we're looking for is some direction by consensus of the council. Is, do we want to engage with city of Fishers on this to begin with, or not?
I think it's a good idea. I think that's one of those things that we have about securing our boundaries so we don't get swallowed up. I mean, we're already serving them a utility, so it seems like it's something that we should do. And it's, I don't know if all of you have seen the new map anyway. Do you have it where you could put it up on the
I'm sorry,
screen?
I don't have it handy.
That we did at the meeting that we had, where everybody come in and showed, what they'd like to see. And, but I think it's something that we should do. It's not too far out of what we currently are anyway. So, and it makes sense, but I think we should at least reach out and see put the feelers out, I guess, to say, find out what they think about it.
And what did the others think? Is there
Yeah.
some consensus?
I agree with that. I would like to know what, after that step though, I'd like to know where the people, where they want to live. I mean,
Sure.
that's important to me.
Right.
And some of that annexation that Fishers is talking about doing includes some of this property. So I don't want that to happen before we get an opportunity to.
What happens with
Right.
water? Like if
Yeah.
we're providing the water and then they annex it, nothing changes? We just.
No, nothing would change. The only other, there's probably two other nuances that, again, we'd have to figure out down the road how we'd want to handle it. But first, municipalities in Indiana are allowed to annex into other counties, obviously, as long as it's unincorporated lands, which this would be. But we would have to get approval from, in this case, the Hamilton County Commissioners to be able to do that. And then secondly, in Indiana annexation law, and Alex can always chime in on this if need be, but there are different types of annexations, whether it's 100% voluntary, whether it's partially voluntary, or whether it's involuntary. And each procedure, each type of annexation requires a different type of procedure. Now, in the case of Fishers, for example, in those two subdivisions that we're referring to, is they did sign, the developer originally signed a non-remonstrance waiver for those two neighborhoods that would run with the land. Now, whether or not they're still legally binding, that's a whole nother story. But the only thing that I'm mentioning is, there'll be plenty of public discussion. There'll be discussion with council and what's the right path forward, and what's obviously the legal way of doing it. But it could, what I'm getting at is it could be a little bit more complicated than the usual annexations that we're all accustomed to. If you have a developer come in, they want to develop a property. So, but okay, then we'll do that probably. You know, it might make sense for me, Joe, and Tanya if to reach out to Mayor Fadness and see if they want to have a meeting with us and take it from there. That sounds good.
Adam, I agree with what you've said and what everybody said here, and I'd also read about that non-remonstrance waiver. So I was curious, in light of that, I was curious, as you brought it up, you said, you know, do we want to talk with Fishers? Do we want to create some contact with Fishers to see what they think about it? But I'm not really sure what it is, because don't they want to annex? Don't.
Well,
Isn't their position-
Negotiate, I
isn't
guess
there-
is a better
yeah.
word for that.
They want something that we think we might want, or we might want to see if the homeowners want it, and I'm just trying to make sure I understand.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, it's a,
we don't know. Have those discussions as to what their motive is. Simply put, my suspicions are they have unincorporated lands nearby, and Fishers already does the planning they already did the planning for that area. So they probably thought simply, might as well fill out this part of the county and annex it into the city. And frankly, they may not have even thought, because it's infrequent that an adjacent municipality in another county wants to go into another county, they may not have even considered it. So who knows? We don't know exactly what their position is, but hopefully they're willing to at least hear us out. And I think it's obviously up to you all as council to make the policy on it and which direction we want to head. My advice would be that anytime you can engage the people that actually live there as to what do they want to do.
Right.
yeah.
That's probably the fairest route. And, they may ultimately, if they know they have a third option of it going in the town of Fortville, maybe they'd see it as beneficial as well. Who knows?
I think we
Curious
have an
thought.
advantage just because we provide the utility too, so having the water already there makes a difference too.
Well, and I was wondering about that. If they're to get annexed by Fishers, why would we keep servicing their water? Or I don't know, do you stop, or I don't even know.
No, we already have some that are in Fishers that
We
that
do.
Fishers crossed over where they shouldn't have been anyway, I think, so we
Yeah,
weren't there to protect our. So they're getting they're
But-
getting our water.
But also, just to clarify, even if somehow this wound up with us taking those properties, our property assessments would still go up, right? Wouldn't they, whether Fishers takes them or not, or we do?
Well, if the jurisdiction changed from unincorporated Hamilton County to town of Fortville, it'd obviously still be in Hamilton County. The school districts would remain the same. Those would be unaffected. But the amount of revenue coming in from property taxes, I'm sure you know, obviously, that our budget there's an interplay between the total assessed value of the town and how much we're able to spend. And so because of the relatively high assessed value of those areas, one would hope that they could pay for themselves. But that's one thing that we'd have to analyze too, if it makes financial sense for that. But it could potentially, I should say, potentially infuse some property tax revenue into the town.
Yeah, that would be important to look into, because at tax assessment time last month, everybody was going, it's because of all those new houses. And it sounds like from what you're saying, sometimes maybe it is because of new houses.
Well, and
but we'd have
I
to check it
think
out.
we'd have to verify it, but my general understanding is there's a possibility that if there's an injection of new property tax revenue that's coming in, it could actually bring the tax rate down for the entire area.
Because there's more
Yeah.
houses.
Because there's more assessed value feeding into the system relative to the size of the budget. So those are all things that they're very important
There'd be
details that
good
both
analysis.
the landowners would want to know and
For
we'd
sure.
want to know too. But
Mhm.
lastly, the window on it is closing. since Fishers wants to move forward with it, I think this summer, going through the formal process. So we'll act on it quickly to try to get that meeting set up, and we'll let you know what we find out and what decisions that you will need to make relative to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Heath.
Council. Heath with the
Hello.
Parks Manager. Just want to give a couple quick updates, go over a couple things. First of all, Summerfest is coming up, as you guys well know, the 13th. Just wanted to remind everybody of the street closure starting at 8 p.m. on Stat Street for vendor setup. Times opens at 11, runs until 10, fireworks from 10 to whenever they finish. Just so everybody's aware, we've gotten some rain. We're expected some more rain, but that'll be a fire department call from, a drought perspective. If they think the fireworks are doable or not, we will always plan to do them. And then the only other thing would be weather, if that came up. Times, like I said, 11 to 10. I know Libby had shot me an email, and I think Natalie's working with some businesses on Main Street to do a sidewalk sale on Main Street as well during Summerfest. So hopefully getting some businesses out there. That's something I think Natalie's putting together separate from Summerfest, just kind of having some conversations. Have you had any conversations with her outside of?
I haven't.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
I can touch base with her and find out what's going on, but she's just trying to promote businesses to come out and be a part kind of of the Summerfest.
Do we need to get permission or anything for that?
I don't think so, to be able to just go out on the sidewalk in front of their.
Pay attention.
Sorry.
The businesses want to do a sidewalk sale on Main Street during Summerfest. Is it okay that they put things out on the sidewalk that?
I mean, I would think so, but I mean, as long as we're all together, if you just want to get consensus from the council, it
Yeah.
can't hurt.
I'm good with it.
Yep.
Sounds
Yep.
nice.
Okay, there we
Sounds
go.
like plan.
Perfect. Just quick update, Boys and Girls Club is in and running. It is a loud screaming mess in there. They're very happy initially with the amount of participation that they have. So they're doing strong, and they're doing really well as far as just cleaning and making sure that they're handling things the way they should. I'll get into the Sharks thing here in a minute. We also have another baseball organization that I was introduced to kind of at the same time as the Sharks. It's the Fishers Hype, but it's a lot of kids from around this area, a lot of neighborhoods actually that you guys are talking about right now that are kind of that in between that Fortville, Hamilton County area. They have already booked out every field for the spring. And they've just spent almost $2,200 on practices this fall, and they want to work in tandem with this Sharks organization if that's something we decide to do. So the positive side is the fields will be full. They actually want to, I got looking at our fee schedule. Our fee schedule just says athletic fields. Originally, for some reason, I thought the fee schedule had talked about like specific fields like Judy Terrell and the
I
Red
think it
Brick Field
did.
and stuff, but now it just says athletic fields because they're interested in renting the smaller T-ball fields as well, at least 2 of them. The general thought was being able to make 2 of the 3 available for practices that are rentable, that they've actually got time. So that way nobody can show up and say, hey, this is a park, but then keeping 1 open for the general public to be able to use during those practice times. Obviously during the day, doesn't really matter. We got a lot of kids out there, riding their bikes in and playing kickball and stuff, which is great. But they want to be able to use 2 of those 3 fields down there. So I don't see any reason per the fee schedule verbiage wise that we just can't do that. But I am going to bring that fee schedule back to you guys here, probably the first meeting in August, to have some of the Optimist verbiage that's still on that fee schedule removed off of that for obvious reasons. But moving forward, I don't know that we want to tie ourselves into any specific separate contract with these organizations. We've got the fee schedule set up in place. If somebody wants to use it, they can come in and that's essentially what both of these organizations have said is we don't want you to change anything. We'll just pay what your guys' ordinance says that we should be paying. So Along with the fact that they have all those scheduled, they want to come in on their own dime and build batting cages. 2 batting cages by the 2 softball fields and another one down at the Little League field. And then they also would like me to provide them with a list of in-kind stuff on top of the donations. They would like to paint all the dugouts and
wow.
help with cleaning out the concession stands and maybe getting those better and more usable. They offered to paint the pavilions in the park, which Joe and I have talked a little bit about maybe even replacing some of those, but they've offered to paint those, paint bathrooms, whatever we need, help replacing fence cap, that type of stuff. So it's a good thing. The group has been very, very good. They have been very good with communication, and they have paid when they're supposed to pay. And we actually just refunded them some money for weather throughout the spring. They had some practices canceled. But with that being said, that Sharks contract I sent to you guys early. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to look over it. I'm not asking tonight. I wanted to give everybody plenty of time, but what I would like to do is get things dialed in through Alex and through you guys and finally have that conversation of, hey, this is what we want to do. They are paid through August in their current, or paid through the end of July in their current facility. They can extend that if they need to, but their goal would be to be using our facility sometime in August if possible, and retrofitting that. So if anybody's got any questions as to what that looks like, I've kind of talked with them and walked them through the building of kind of what that looks like. I can go over that. And outside of that Sharks contract, I just wanted to let you guys know that we removed a set of bleachers by the community center that were just rotten and old, and got that ground leveled out and seeded. The old restroom down by the basketball courts is 90% gone. We've got a little bit of dirt work and stuff to do down there. The old horseshoe pits that were just there are now gone. And then the flagpole, all of that, the flowers and everything that were just kind of overgrown with just weeds and just a maintenance nightmare, that's all gone there at the flagpole. The goal there is to put some river rock, almost what they did out on Main Street, with some heavy fabric and a barrier and river rock down, and maybe some more bigger ornamental rocks in there with the Memorial Park sign. We do have Rice Tree Service hopefully coming in here in the next couple weeks to trim a bunch of trees in the park, high ones. They got to get limbs off flag poles, things like that, because we can't even get a flag up there right now because of that tulip tree. So we've got some work coming in the park as far as that's concerned. The last thing I have is I got an email today for the playground stuff. They are looking very into August, first part of September to break ground on all that kind of stuff. One of the things I want to do, Joe brought it up today, and I thought it was a great idea, is reach out to their design team and see if they can get us a big sign with maybe a picture of it and post it down there, coming soon, or upgrades coming. That's cool. Just to give people a heads up, because the park's been really full.
It create a little excitement, I think.
For sure, for sure. So just so everybody understands that there are things being done. That's all I have, other than Ms. Davis brought up today about a restroom. I am well aware of kind of the state of the restrooms in our parks. They're not great. They're old buildings. Both restrooms at the softball fields are open 24/7 this time of year. The restroom at the dog park is open 24/7. That's reopened this time of year. That one's actually in really good shape, other than the outside. That's one that'll be painted. And then the restroom up at the shelter house, we clean it every week. It gets checked every week. It's just old. The doors stay open. The lights are on. There's bugs in them. I mean, it's just one of those, old buildings as far as we're concerned, that just frankly need to be kind of renovated. I don't know from a budget perspective what that looks like right now. The good thing about having these two organizations, the baseball organizations, come in, and I think I noted it in the email, we've got, in total, it'd be about $63,000 a year in revenue just from that building. That's not including shelter house rentals, dog park fees, all of that. I think in total last year between everything, shelter house, dog park, community center was right around 75,000. So this alone would be almost as much as what our total revenue was last year for all three facilities. And now we're, so we're probably looking between shelter house and dog park somewhere around 100K a year in revenue. Obviously, we less utilities out of that, but that leaves us with a pretty good chunk of change to start helping supplement our budget to do things like the restrooms and different other things that we need to do around the park. So
I think we definitely need to do that, though. That's what I was saying. The park looks so good and there's so many there. It was full on Sunday. And I think that we need to have just probably those people don't even know there's other restrooms out there. Because it stands right there in the middle and everybody sees it when they drive by. The others are not as noticeable. So they don't know that they're there. But I think if we had one set of restrooms that was locally placed, even if it wasn't there, some way, it doesn't matter, and have something nice that we can take care of,
one of the things that we thought about doing after obviously tearing down those old ones over there by that park was the concession stand at Hampton Fields. That building is not being used. I don't foresee that being a usable concession stand anymore because of just the practices and the way everything's kind of shaped. That building would actually be very good to turn into a restroom. And so again, it's going to come down to budget. For this year, budget with the playground equipment's kind of blown on my end. But it's definitely something that's on the plan, the master plan, and it's something that we have talked about at length about trying to get some different facilities in there. And frankly, those are old enough that it might just be better just to bulldoze them and drop in one of the temporary, like we talked about over at Landmark Park, one of the prefabbed buildings that could fit right over the top of that and utilize the existing sewer and water, but a new building. So it might be a way to go.
And that'd probably be the cheapest way to go, really.
More than likely.
That sounds good.
Does anybody have any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Heath. Appreciate it. Patrick.
I'll be brief. It's 4th of July this week. It's one of our busiest weekends normally. Please don't call 911 for fireworks complaints. Use the non-emergency number. 911 is always backed up with people blowing their fingers off and disturbances because people have been drinking all day and people call because their neighbors let off fireworks. So please don't do that. Have a safe 4th of July. Don't drink and drive because we're going to have extra officers out. That's the second biggest drinking day there is. So I don't want to send people to the Hancock County Jail if I don't have to, but if you're drinking and driving, you're going to go. So that's all I got unless you got questions for me.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah. I guess that's all we can offer is good luck. Missy's not here. Alex?
I don't have anything unless you have questions for me.
I just want to publicly touch base about that Dora thing. I think that we consider looking into different options for Dora. I think maybe at the next meeting you can bring us some
Examples?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'll circulate those to the council as well. There's some things online so that you can kind of take a look at before the meeting and then we can talk about it in the next meeting and see if it's something that you all would want to pursue further. And if so, then we can start putting pen to paper.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea for everybody to take a look at it.
What door?
So it's the Dora is the designated outdoor refreshment area. And so it's a new law that, well, relatively new. It's been in place for a year now, that allows cities and towns to create specific areas that restaurants and bars can allow customers to take no more than 2 open drinks out. And then if there's a festival for like Summerfest or something, or the car show or different events like that, I'm thinking Main Street would be a pretty easy, like a good fit for that. That you can have that kind of an event. So you can go into Fox Garden, get a beer, have it in a cup, not glass, go out and check out the old cars or the sidewalk sale that we were talking about, those types of events. So it opens up just the ability with respect to those businesses in town that sell alcohol for their customers to be able to patronize them, but then not have to finish their drink and then go out, to be able to go out and if there's something going on. So the law allows the town to set the parameters, whether it's time that the door is in effect, days, parts of the year, specific events. So the town can really tailor these DORAs to what works for Fortville, because Fortville is unique. So it's a economic development tool, really, at its heart, to, enable Fortville to have a little bit something extra that.
I saw Carmel's proposal on the news this morning,
Yep.
so yeah, I saw that they were coming out with one.
Yep, I would talk to, yes, I've been helping a number of.
I think it
communities
just
with
started today, right? July 1st is when it just went, like the state proposal or whatever that was passed. Or-
No, so
That's
DORAs went in last year.
Last year, okay.
But they're just starting to catch on. So they're
Okay.
probably a dozen.
They
or
were talking about the same
so.
time on the news as they were talking about the new July 1st, I think,
Mhm.
laws that were going into
Right.
effect is what.
So you
yeah.
can now have happy hour and.
Yeah, there's happy hours
To-go
back.
Saw
cocktails,
that too.
something different than the DORA. To-go cocktails aren't to go.
Right,
drink.
they can
have to
discount
be
cocktails
sealed
through a
and
period of
everything.
time, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
But yeah, there were some changes to the law that took place today.
I think 18-year-olds can serve alcohol too in
They
the
can't.
restaurants is
Still
one of the
can't be a
new.
bartender, but
Right.
they can be a server on a restricted server.
Right, I saw that.
Can you include Patrick too on whatever?
Yo,
you
absolutely.
send?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have any opinions of that? Do you want to say, I mean, now before we even get started on this? Because I did ask you, but I didn't hear anything. It was,
Well,
so, yeah.
No, I really don't have anything. As long as it's written up properly and correctly and sets certain boundaries and it's enforceable, I think that I don't have any issues with it.
Okay.
I think it'd be a good thing for the town for those events that will get people out and moving around instead of just camping in one spot and waiting and then going to the next spot.
And then I don't, they wouldn't have to serve alcohol like on the sidewalk either. Like, like some of them set up, they would just be able to get it in there and come out.
Right.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have to.
Yeah, I, as long as it's written properly, I don't have any issues with it.
The one thing I did want to ask you, Alex, does that affect their alcohol permits at all? Or does that supersede what they've gotten, because we had to go through with the defined areas.
Right.
What happens to that when,
So the DORA does not affect any alcohol permits within the DORA. So it would just be if you create the DORA, then you have to have at least one alcohol permittee, so Fox Garden, Mexican restaurant, take your pick, in the DORA that agrees and wants to be a designated permittee. You just have to have one. You can have more than one. And there's a separate form that it's a one pager that the restaurant signs and also town official signs, and you submit that to the Alcohol Tobacco Commission with the DORA, or you add people later. So it doesn't affect their permit, just
Okay.
adds to what customers really are allowed to do by taking drinks to go. Also, under current law, without a DORA, it's a misdemeanor for both the customer and the restaurant to bring alcohol into a licensed premises. So the DORA eliminates that. So you could, if you created a DORA, just my hypothetical, on Main Street, you could go into Fox Garden, get a glass of wine or beer or whatever, have it in an approved cup, go out, you see friends in the Mexican restaurant, you go in there, you could go in. Now, it doesn't require the Mexican restaurant to allow you to come in. So again, there's flexibility there. So it just opens up, it relaxes the law with respect to bringing alcohol into alcohol licensed premises, taking it out and so forth. And one other aspect that I think goes to your question that does help on some permitting, and Heath and I have dealt with this on some festivals. So for right now, when the vendors, outside vendors come in for Summerfest or Winterfest or pick your fest, and they want to have alcohol, well, there's a temporary permit that they get from the
Yeah.
Alcohol Tobacco Commission. It has to get approved. And it's not terribly onerous, but it's a process. But also those temporary permits, you can't have carryout. It's limited. So if Alex's Bar and Grill wants to come up and set up, my stand and sell beer or whatever, you can't do spirits, but beer and wine through, my thing, it's gotta be confined to my little area and I can't do it. In Adora, if you had Adora, Alex's Bar and Grill, even though I'm not here in Fortville, I could get a temporary designated vendor for a festival, come in and then set up my thing. And then I'm not limited to just my little area. So for big events
Yeah.
and festivals, it creates more flexibility that really just kind of gets rid of some unreasonable regulations, in my opinion.
Right.
That are just, that's unrealistic to think. And it's a huge enforcement issue for the vendors to try to keep track of customers that are getting drinks. So it adds flexibility there, but it's something to really take a close look at. Definitely work with Pat and his team, Joe and Adam. The statute allows for public safety provisions for the DORA, trash management, waste management provisions, things like that you can kind of imagine. You don't want a bunch of cups and things. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll circulate some examples of some communities that I think are at least in the same ballpark as Fortville, size and kind of character. Get those two, you can kind of look at and see what some other cities and towns are doing. And then if we want to move forward, we can see what works for the town.
Sounds good. Thanks, Alex.
Yep.
Public comment. Nobody can hear you online. Is there anybody online? If there's anybody online, I guess you could sit out there, but we might not get you on the recording.
You can, yeah, there's no open container law for that. There's open container law, as Chief Bratton would say, don't have one in your car, front seat or back seat, nowhere in your car. That's the open container.
You just can't go into the bar, buy one and walk out with it right now.
That's the issue.
That's the difference, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes,
They'll get a
yes.
ticket if they're not drunk.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Pat, this is his word.
What if I'm just taking my beer to my friend's house?
It's been that way for a long time. Yeah.
My wine has a twist. And it's been open.
Where you can't get to it while you're driving.
And actually,
Don't be drinking your alcohol while you're driving, Becky. For your golf cart.
no,
Yeah.
Bicycles.
Well, you're on private property then.
Or you're wearing the hat with the beer.
Toasty, there's been some states out west that have arrested somebody for OWI on a horse. So the rules and the laws can go from
the horse was
one
drinking
way
too.
to the other way. This guy's argument was the horse knew the way home. And they fought it in court, and actually they had to prove that the horse could figure out how to get home from the bar, and the horse did. So
Awesome, awesome.
won that
I love
court
it.
case.
I love it.
Yes, multiple different things you could do.
I love it. Hey, if you can argue it.
If he's on his private property though, you wouldn't do that, right? I mean,
Be public intox. And yes, you can do it on private property, but the law states you have to be a nuisance to yourself or others and things like that. And our prosecutor does not like public intox at all. You really have to be warned, and generally, once that happens, you've already gotten a disorderly conduct warning, and then you've been arrested for disorderly conduct also. You want to have a private conversation, but
Vicky's asking for a friend.
oh yeah, it's public intoxication, yeah.
OWI.
If they're on a
probably.
public street or on a
Yep.
public roadway, riding a bicycle, it can be a public intoxication. But like I said, they probably need to be a danger to themselves or be very, very mouthy at the time that police interfere with them.
You could be walking down the street.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Public, if you're being, out of control and somebody recognizes that, then yeah, you could get PI just walking down the street. You just want to know the rules if you do.
Yeah, I'm not gonna start on a bicycle.
Okay, any other, you got anything to say? Council comments, Ms. Libby?
No, I don't think I have anything. It's all private stuff.
It's all private. Yeah.
No, thank you.
I have nothing.
I just have one note. I think the farmer's market this week's on Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
July 4th is Thursday and I haven't been to it yet myself this season, but I hear that the Landmark Park location is pretty good. So I don't know. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Advertising, I think, and signs and that kind of stuff. They need some signs. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's part of why I wanted to promote it. Yeah.
Wonder if they could look into getting some signs, like those street signs like they use for Summerfest.
Are they still part of the chamber?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if,
I think they had some signs because they,
Well, the town, did a nice.
last year, they had some signs on the highway, I thought, last year.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't see over one of them when I was pulling out from Sunrise. I remember complaining. I couldn't see pulling out.
Well, the town did a nice, I think Andy did a nice flyer that had all of the meetings and events and farmers markets. And I shared it and I think everybody could share it. That would help. I don't know. But they're still part of the chamber, right?
yes,
Yeah. I
yeah, the
mean,
chambers changed, but
could-
yeah.
They could do some advertising.
Yeah,
Not just
well, no,
Facebook.
That's all for me.
Need a motion to approve and sign vouchers.
I'll make a motion to approve and sign vouchers.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:34.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thanks for coming.
Thanks.